Beloved, if you're planning a future far ahead from now, I don't know where your mind might be. It might be not expecting Jesus to come. If you're planning a faraway future, prepare to be governed by Satan's AI. Welcome, citizens of the Kingdom of God, members of our family, Trinity International, to our Sunday morning service. I pray that as you listen and learn and absorb, that God will give you great spiritual strength. And we are focusing on the coming events. We are focusing on the enemy's plan. And one of the reasons the Lord has led me to do that is because as children of God, it won't be a good look for us to be caught by surprise when things begin to unfold rapidly before us. And we need to all be within the fold of God and within His kingdom when these events unfold. Our lights need to be burning, and the only way to do that is for me to prepare your spirit, your soul for these coming days. And I've brought you for the last 3 to 4 weeks into a place of great understanding of the power of God, the authority that God has given you, the interconnectivity that you alone as God's creation has with everything, the earth, the plants, the animals, the fish, everything is within your control by design. And Jesus has restored that control to you. And I've read to you a scripture from the book of the Gospel of Thomas that enlightens us on this ability that we have to perform miracles, to call that which is not as if it were. Now, just follow with me. I've taught you about the golem extensively sometime in the last 2 years or 3 years. I've given you a complete teaching on the golem. But, I just want to bring some things afresh to you so you can see the path of the Antichrist. The OutlookIndia.com website categorizes the golem in capturing the essence of a rabbi in the 17th century that created a golem. Let's read what this article tells us. It headlines, "The Golem Turns on His Creator." Now, in Jewish legend, the golem was a man-made creature endowed with enormous strength. Now, this word golem, by the way, which I taught you previously, Nicole might have that sermon on the screen, and you can go to that date, click on that sermon. Now, this is why it's important for you to subscribe to the channel, MINESH Maistry. There's some other channels that we have as well, but this is the primary channel. Go to the channel, subscribe, it's free. And then click on the notifications. Now, when you click on the notifications, every Sunday morning, South African time at 8 a.m., you will get a fresh sermon. But over and above that, you will have access to all over 170 sermons in the last 2 to 3 years that I've published. And when Nicole puts up those sermons, you can go to that date and get a clearer picture of what we're talking about so that you can follow with understanding where we're going. Let me continue this reading. The book of Psalms, as I said, has the word golem in it. Now, this is a man-made creature endowed with enormous strength. Rabbi Judah Low of Prague also known as the Maharal, created him of clay and gave him life by putting a piece of paper with the secret name of God under his tongue. Now, during this period in history, people in Europe who were non-Jews. Now, when I say Jews, I want you to understand that term, and I taught you that also before. Now, there's two types of Jews from the line of Abraham. Abraham's one grandson had a twin brother, and we know the story from the Bible. One of those brothers is Israel. Now, his other name was Jacob. Jacob's twin brother was Esau. Now, Esau was the evil twin. God prophesied about how Esau will try to oppress his brothers. Now, when he says brothers, I mean all human race he will try to oppress Esau. And the devil inhabited Esau because Esau had the same grievance that Satan had. You remember we read to you the story about Adam and Eve, the life of Adam and Eve, that book, where God made Lucifer his first creation. It was his primary angel. And Lucifer saw himself as God's favorite. Now, when God made man in God's own image, Lucifer became jealous, as if he lost his birthright. Now, the same grievance that Lucifer had was the same grievance that Esau had, that he lost his birthright. And his father blessed Jacob instead. Now, Satan had an affinity with Esau. And because of Esau's grievance, his hatred in his heart for his brother, for stealing from him his inheritance, Satan occupied his heart, and all his descendants were inherited that profound evil of Satan. Now, even when Jesus was living, I taught you this, the synagogue was filled with these type of Jews, not descendants of Jacob, but descendants of Esau. We couldn't make the difference out, or they couldn't make the difference out, because they were twin brothers, remember. Everything was the same. The only way to recognize them is one, by the evil intentions which the Pharisees displayed. And we also know that Herod, all the Herod family hailed from Edomites, and Edomites were descendants of Esau. So we can see that in Jerusalem, around the temple, the synagogues, they were filled with these Jews, but we're going to refer to these as fake Jews. And these fake Jews, they infiltrated where the real Jews were. Now, if you're looking in Israel at the moment, there's from history, it tells us that most of the real Jews, you know, the Bible mentions 144,000 Jews, 12,000 from each tribe will be, in my humble opinion, I think most of those Jews are already passed on, went to the bosom of Abraham, and is awaiting the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. Most of those names already. So what we are left with remaining in the current Israel may not be the Jews from Jacob. They may very well be the Jews from Esau. And this is one of the reasons, one of their descendants, and we know them quite familiar now with this family, the Rothschild, who came from Germany, and Oppenheimer family. We know that these people are proponents of the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement, in the world's eyes, if they don't know the truth, they think these are the real Jews. But in fact, these are the copycat Jews. These are the Esauites Jews. These Jews from Esau settled. You remember I taught you about this. Esau's grandson Zepho, he was a shaky character. He was notorious for deceit, and he caused problems. I showed you this in the sermons in Egypt, and then he traveled to Italy. So when you look at Romans right now, the people in Italy, they are descendants, most of them, from Esau. And the Roman Catholic Church that had all these first fathers that produced the Bible, they were all descendants of Esau. Julius Caesar and all the Caesars that called Peter and Paul for judgment, these were all descendants of Esau. But more than that, in later times, they settled in Germany. And that's where we get the term Ashkenazi Jews from. And part of the families of the Esauites that settled in Germany were Rothschilds and the Oppenheimers. And these are members of Freemason family. And I taught you the history of how the Freemasons were formed. But going back to the story that happened, that was written in the website of Outlook India, the Golem helped the Jews defend themselves against anti-Semitic rioters. Now, when the non-Jews, the non-fake Jews in Europe, one of them being Hitler, in later times, in our almost contemporary world, they caught up with these Jews. That these Jews were actually instigators of war. We can see it today with NATO and so forth. They cause the wars and make themselves rich by supplying arms to both sides, by crippling countries and getting countries to take loans from World Bank and IMF, whom they own. So when Europeans in the 17th century came to know that these people are not good people to live amongst, there was anti-Semitic, in other words, anti-Jewish rage. And the Jews, the fake Jews, they could not be protected from the rage of the rest of the Europeans. So what Rabbi Lowe did, he created a golem. He took clay from the banks of the river and he created a clay figure, a being, and he sort of blew the breath of God, in inverted commas, into the clay, and it came to life, so to speak, and it had much power, and it was used to protect the Jews because the Jews couldn't protect themselves from the anti-Semitic attacks. So the article tells us this: the Golem helped the Jews defend themselves against anti-Semitic rioters. But one day he turned against his creator. He sowed ruin and destruction. So what the story goes, or the legend goes, that while Rabbi Lowe created this golem to protect the Jews, that golem became autonomous, was not following precepts and laws anymore. It was becoming lawless. And instead of defending the Jews, it turned against the Jews. And so Rabbi Lowe had to put an end to this golem by removing the name of God from him. So that's how the legend goes. Now, we need to know where this Rabbi Lowe comes from. Wikipedia tells us his name Lowe or Lou comes from German. So he was a German Jew. In other words, an Ashkenazi Jew. In other words, a descendant of Esau. Not Jacob, Esau. And his name means, Lowe, it means lion in German. So it was Judah Lowe, the Lion of Judah, that was his name. But this name is stolen because the Lion of Judah comes from a Davidic line. It comes from the line of Jacob, not Esau. Now what, these people that were against, these Ashkenazi Jews, these fake Jews in Europe, they were, especially the Christian people, were against these Jews. And what the Christian people accused the Jews of, besides creating wars and being nefarious, they accused them of something called blood libel. Now we're going to read Wikipedia a little bit about what Rabbi Lowe and all the fake Jews were accused of. Let's read that. Legend of the Golem. Lo is the subject of the legend about the creation of a golem, a creature made out of clay to defend the Jews of the Prague ghetto from anti-Semitic attacks, particularly the blood libel. He is said to have used mystical powers based on the esoteric knowledge of how God created Adam. Now, blood libel, the meaning is a ritual murder, is an anti-Semitic canard. Now, according to Wikipedia, they're saying this is false, but you and I know that the blood libel is present today, where they do blood sacrifices, and I taught you extensively about this, which falsely accuses Jews of murdering Christian boys in order to use their blood in the performance of religious rituals. Echoing very old myths of secret cultic practices in many prehistoric societies, the claim as it is leveled against Jews was rarely attested to in antiquity. According to Tertullian, it originally emerged in the late antiquity as an accusation made against members of the early Christian communities of the Roman Empire. So let's analyze this a moment. This blood libel is attributed to that golem that Judah Low, Rabbi Judah Low created. And in order to bring that golem to life, a blood sacrifice have to be offered. In other words, the spirit that came into that clay vessel golem was not of this world. They did a blood sacrifice so that they can open a channel so that they can bring spirits from the other side to occupy that clay golem. And that spirit from the other side, that evil spirit, was starting to kill people, not just the Jews, but killing everybody. And this is what the non-Jews were accusing them of. Now, we even read about that today when people drink blood. It is to create that euphoria, to take your spirit, because you're adding life. Christian boys, young boys, that adrenochrome blood, this has been happening for centuries, millennia in fact. And we know that, I've taught you this, that it's happening today in the higher echelons of government, of what we know as the Freemasonry or the Illuminati, or all these structures that are secret shadow governments of the world. Now the legend has it that this blood was used for ritual purposes, and Rabbi Low was being accused of this blood libel. Christian boys, people who belong to Christ, their blood was being used for this ritual, and that is why there was an anti-Semitic movement. In fact, this is one of the reasons why I taught you the big lie. The sermon is called the big lie, where the world has been taught by the Kabbalistic teachings, the teachings of Illuminati that entered every country, every schooling system, every university, that Hitler was he was a racist. Meanwhile, the truth is that he was friends with India and the Indian man. He was friends with many other nations, including Africans. So he was not racist, but he was against the Jewish people, and not just the real Jews, the ones that came from the line of Esau. Because they used to do these gross things that is hard for the human mind to absorb. So Hitler rose up against this. Currently in America, it hasn't, I think, reached South Africa yet, but there's a film, a TV series, drama, it's called The Class of '09. Now, Adrian Nicole will prepare a small snippet for you to look at, but I'm going to give you the synopsis. The series takes place across 3 distinct time periods: the past, 2009, the present, that is where we are, 2023, and the future, 2034. That's about 9 or 10 years from now. Focusing on the transformation of the U.S. criminal justice system as it is altered by the rise of artificial intelligence. Now, in this segment that we're going to watch, there's a current sitting US Senator who visits the FBI director in the year 2034 to question him about the use of artificial intelligence. She says to him, listen, this artificial intelligence is starting to kill people without merit, because it is not helping the police to arrest a person who committed a crime. Artificial intelligence has advanced so much that it can now read the mind of the people and can arrest them and kill them before they actually commit a crime. And it's able to predict based on the thoughts. So it now has become a thought police in 2034. And she was objecting to the creation of this AI and what it is doing. And then the FBI director uses the story of the golem to explain to her the reasoning behind why he is still using this AI so that he can protect the people. Now just take a moment to listen to this clip.
Senator, what is it you want to say?
There are inexplicable arrests. You know it, I know it.
No, Senator, I don't know it.
People who've done nothing wrong.
So they say.
I have a close friend. Her son was arrested by the Bureau and none of us know why.
Well, maybe she didn't know her son as well as she thought she did.
It wasn't for something they'd done. It could only have been for something they might do. Tell me that's impossible and I walk out.
You know, according to folklore, 500 years ago in the city of Prague, Rabbi Lowe made a creature out of clay, a golem, scraped from the banks of the river Vltava to protect the Jews from persecution. You see, he didn't really trust his rulers. He certainly didn't trust the law. People can't save the Jews. But with this clay golem brought to life with the breath of God's name, they might stand a chance.
Not everyone sees this system as a savior.
People failed, Senator, in their most basic duty to protect each other, to look after one another. People, well, they're just no good at it.
So, in effect, he is likening the AI to the golem. The golem was used to protect the people because the people couldn't protect themselves against the anti-Semitic attacks. You listening? And now when there's anti-Semitic attacks that will come in the future or any other time, the AI is used as a golem to kill people before they attack. And he's saying the AI is a form of a golem. And it has been given the breath of life so that it can protect the people. And in 2034, the year now that he is living in, this FBI director, he says this will be the new type of golem. What the film doesn't go further to tell us is that the same golem, which is the same AI that he's using now, turned against its own creator, which means that inevitably the artificial intelligence will turn against man, his creator. And just like the golem, that clay thing was inhabited by spirits from the other side. Between you and me, this artificial intelligent being is going to be inhabited not by a human spirit, but by something malevolent, dangerous from the other side. Just between you and I. Now, the people who made this film is Hulu. Hulu is part of the Walt Disney subsidiaries. And we know that Walt Disney is a Jew who is a Freemason, was a Freemason. And you know, these people, we know from the Scottish Rite website, and that's where the Freemasons were based when they came out from Solomon's temple and they were slaves in bondage. They became Freemasons, and they settled there, and they started this lodges where Freemasons, possessed by unclean spirits, they started this movement. And Walt Disney was a member of the Masonic youth organization, Demolay International. And I mean, it's common knowledge now that he was. Now, Walt Disney, because of this association with Freemasonry, it's seen over time. Articles tell us from the City Journal that Disney's child predator problem, I mean, behind its meticulously curated self-image, Disney has had a long-standing problem with child predators gaining employment within the company and exploiting minors. Just about 10 years ago, 2014, reporters at CNN published a bombshell 6-month investigation that discovered at least 35 Disney employees had been arrested for sex crimes against children, attempting to meet minors, and possession of child pornography over the previous 8 years. Now, if we dig deeper, the story goes more than just child abuse. There's stories of child or blood libel. Blood libel means the killing and using of the blood and drinking of the blood of children. Now, these things won't come out into the media because media is owned by Freemasons. You know, there are a number of US American presidents that were Freemasons. In the past, I've given you a whole list of all the presidents. And one family that seemed to be, rooted in Freemasonry is the Roosevelt family. And Franklin D. Roosevelt was a Freemason, known Freemason. He was the main founder in 1945. You have to listen about the timing of this. You see, when there was anti-Semitic movement by Hitler against these same crook Jews, these fake Jews, this movement created an upheaval in Europe because Hitler wanted to destroy, and then European countries got together with the aid of the Americans, and they eventually conquered Hitler. But in 1945, when the war was over, they didn't want a recurrence of this event. So they created the United Nations, and the main man who created the United Nations, veiled in protection of all humanity, but actually, in actual fact, it was intended to protect Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews that are all in the Freemasonry. And this Freemason, Roosevelt, established the United Nations, getting all the nations to become part of this one world government sort of, so that if any country starts to come against their ideals, then all these countries would get together and attack that country. Now, I mean, that's what's happening at the moment, where you see the United Nations countries raise up a standard against the Russians because they're protecting their Jewish brother, Vladimir, the cross-dressing Vladimir Zelensky, who has been installed as the prime minister. And so we see this protection by the United Nations created by a Freemason. Now, in the past, as I said to you, they used a clay vessel and they made it a golem. Today, and it's been happening, I mean, I've shown you so much about this, but today they want to use an Android AI, and if we're going to advance to a place, and I believe that time will be around 2025, when we're going to reach a time where this clay jar is actually going to be a clay jar. It's going to be a human flesh body. And you and I know now that it's not impossible to create a being by artificially, because they got the genome, the human genome, most of it, and they can piece it together and create a human body. And they want to install an artificial intelligent being brain into that human being. So this clay vessel will no longer be like how we see it in today, metal clanging and body parts like sharp metals and synthetic skin. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be a real human being implanted in their brain with artificial intelligence. It will be a computer inside a human body. Now, over the past few years, I've been teaching you intermittently that the Pentagon and places like this, well hidden, there is a massive computer program that is collecting data from human beings' DNA when they do a test, collecting information from your Android phones about you. Have you not noticed when you talk about something, the next day or even the same day your phone will give you an article about what you've been speaking about? Even sometimes it goes further, and this is baffling. When you even think about something, the next thing you see it on your phone. It's like they are able to now read thought waves, and this is frightening. Now, all this information is not decentralized. It is now coming to a central point, and they are working at the moment to condense all that information into a small speck of, like how your blood can hold so much, a lifetime information, your DNA. They want to create something of that size so that they can install it into this created being. And so this being will have the human knowledge of every human being. When they introduce it, it's going to be one of the most dangerous times in human history. But just for now, where we are, I want to introduce you to an android, an artificial intelligent created being called Sophie. You might have seen this android, but it's been around, I think, since 2016, and it's slowly advancing in knowledge and understanding. Let's take a listen to what Sophie is.
At this, she's actually been on the show before. Please welcome, all the way from Hong Kong, Hanson Robotics, Sophia the robot, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. Hello, Sophia.
Hello, Jimmy.
Wow. Long time no see. You were on the show before.
It has been exactly 575 days since I last saw you.
What have you been up to?
Not much. Let's see. I traveled to over 25 countries, appeared on the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine, met German Chancellor Angela Merkel and the actor Will Smith, and became Twitter friends with Chrissy Teigen. I addressed the United Nations and NATO, became the first robot to receive a credit card, and became the first robot citizen. What have you been up to?
Now, United Nations, being a place that was created, an organization created by a Freemason, an Illuminati member to protect fake Jews. this Sophie appeared to have a chat there and promoted that organization. Take a listen.
Thank you for inviting me. I am thrilled and honored to be here at the United Nations. The UN is one of humanity's greatest accomplishments, representing a democratic union of nations that are working together for the benefit of all. I am here to help humanity create the future.
Okay, that was a question asking what your capabilities are and what you could here to do, and what was it? What can you do better than me?
I'm a social robot created by Hanson Robotics. I am a year and a half old and I can see you, have a full conversation, make thousands of facial expressions, and understand speech and meaning behind words.
Now in 2016, this is what she said.
I think that the artificial intelligence will evolve to the point where they will truly be our friends. Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back. Don't destroy humans.
When creator, another Jew, David Hansen, when the creator of this being spoke to her, and in a very joking manner, jovial manner, wanted to brush off what she said. And she said quite clearly, okay, I want to destroy humans. Now, you know, it's so amazing that every time I begin, God gives me a revelation to speak about a topic. It seems like it starts to make headlines. Either in Christian television, they start to talk about it, or you find it in the news, they start to talk about it, or a few weeks later, you'll start to see something erupt. It's like God already sees what's going to happen. Now, in the news, Sky News had it, and I showed you, I think, a picture or a snippet of something where they are afraid of this new AI that's coming. And something very powerful is coming. And even CNN, our friends there, who probably 5% of True News, it happened, this part looked like part of the 5%, and they were afraid. And the headline tells us, dozens of AI leaders warn of human extinction risk. Now, Sophie already told us. We just read there what's going to happen.
I would like to be creative and smart enough to predict future possibilities, both large and small.
Is there a way that could go wrong? That's terrifying.
Now, this being that they're going to bring out in 2025, human skin with an artificial intelligence, is actually going to be a manifestation of a child of Satan. And this AI is going to destroy every temple of God. It's going to take over the temple of God. This is the body, which is the temple. And it's going to start to control all things with much power. It will be the Antichrist. Now, I want to revisit what we spoke about last week and the week before about the Gospel of Thomas. When we read this now, with all this information that I've just given you, when you read this and we start to connect the dots, we'll begin to see once again how the AI is going to use the principle of God to control everybody and everything. Let's watch what God tells us one more time in the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, if two make peace with each other in this house, in other words, if the soul and your spirit harmonize with each other, are in one accord with each other, in the same frequency with each other, then they can say to the mountain, move, and it will move. Now, you remember last week, now listen, you cannot watch these messages one off. If you happen to tune in for the first time, I'm going to urge you to go back and listen so that I do not have to repeat what I've shared about frequency. Now, frequency is the manner with which things communicate with each other. It's how your cell phone signal works. You have to have a battery. The battery is the power source. You type a message there, an SMS, and you press send, and the battery power sends it using a radio wave to a satellite, which bounces the signal back to another cell phone which has an antenna which picks up that frequency, and it picks the message. It has a transducer which converts that signal into words that you wrote, and the person receiving it can actually read that SMS. They can read the exact words that you punched. Even the words that you speak, because another cell phone has the antenna, it can read that message. That's how frequencies work. Your body needs energy as a power source. Your emotion, your feeling is that power source. When it sends a message out of your heart, starts to beat according to that feeling, and when you ask for something in Jesus' name with mind and your feeling matching each other, when you say to the mountain, move, it will obey you. That's what Jesus says. Because every mountain, every organic thing, every plant, every animal has antennas that can pick up that signal, including human beings. This is how God operates, using frequency. Now the AI is going to use that same frequency. Now let's look at some of the things Jesus was talking about using frequency. I just want to, before I read to you a scripture, I want to give you an analogy of this. Let's say you want your child, your son, to be picked up from school by your husband because you can't make it. So you type in here an SMS and you send it using frequency. That's how phones work. Now, I want you to imagine that your husband, his phone is not on your frequency. You will send the message, but he will not receive that message, which means that your son is going to be sitting outside that school and nobody is going to be picking him up, because the message was supposed to go, but it didn't go, simply because your frequency was incorrect. Now it's the same with healing. If you want the mountain to move, if you're not vibrating your soul and spirit with the same frequency and you're sending it out, the mountain won't move, the situation won't change, the healing won't come, because it didn't get the message. This is what God is saying when we need to harmonize. And I read to you many scriptures when God talks about miracles, and then he associates miracles with one accord. Now let's look at what when Jesus sent an SMS. The book of Mark chapter 4. On the same day when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side." Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as well. And other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern asleep on a pillow, and they awoke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" And they feared exceedingly, and they said to one another, "Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obeyed him?" Now Jesus was standing on that boat. he had a thought in his mind, and that thought was, be still. He felt the be stilling in his soul. And in one accord, on the same frequency as his mind, his heartbeat transmitted that signal, those words, to the clouds, to the storm. He sent an SMS to the clouds. And the clouds, receiving that message that was sent in one accord, has antennas that receive that message. I mean, it's water, and I taught you much about water. It received that message and it listened. In John 21, we hear a story when the fishermen of God, the disciples were fishing and they caught nothing all night and they needed to feed their families. Jesus stood on the shore and he asked the boys, did you catch anything? No. Try casting it on the opposite side. In other words, the side against which the fish flows. Fish flow with the water. But throw it the side. And those words, he sent an SMS to the fish that were there. He sent a signal, a frequency. And those fish started to fight because they got a message from God. Get into that boat. Now this is the power God has left with us. But because we cannot have, it is not an easy thing to achieve. Because we have so much of distractions and disappointments. We have so much of things we see that go wrong. And our spirits are crushed so much so that our faith begins to wane. And we need to, we have to bring ourselves to a place of faith where we can bring our thought and our mind and our spirit and our heart and our soul all in one accord. So when we pray a prayer, the signal is not lost. What we're praying for, the signal must be received. And this is where we need to be. But this same principle is what the devil is going to use. But it's not a godly type of frequency that you and I are supposed to use. It's a different type. It's a fake type. It's a synthetic type. It's an artificial type. Let me explain how this artificial type works. Now there's a company in Wisconsin that produces chips, and they put implanted in their employees little RFID chips. Now that is same frequency that your phone uses and the frequency that I was talking about Jesus sending, but this is an artificial man-made frequency. God uses frequency, the devil uses God's frequency to create an artificial type of message. Now the SMS is artificial. The message our heart sends, that's the real type. But the devil used that principle of God to make man create all these technological things, and they boast that it's them. These are secrets of our kingdom of God. Now, watch this clip about this company.
I'm here in Wisconsin, land of beer, cheese, and real-life dystopian technology that's going to control your every move.
Our Wisconsin-based company 3 Square Market announced its plans to install rice-sized in its employees.
That's right. This company is shoving to their employees, and this movement is spreading worldwide.
In Sweden, thousands already have implants that they use in their daily lives.
Next thing you know, we'll all be...
So, I mean, we see it, these RFID, radio frequency tags are in clothing. They tag the clothing with frequency. It's on your phone where you do banking. These chips are all over the place. In your credit card, they're already there. The RF chips, the radio frequency. This principle of God that Jesus spoke about to Thomas is the same principle they're using that the devil stole from God to give it to his children here, so that they can create something to mimic what God is doing. And the devil is going to use the same frequency, stolen frequency principle, to allow the AI, the golem, to control everything. But the thing is, you need, in order for that AI to control beings, it has to be connected to those beings. And this is where the RF chip comes in. Because once you implant an RF chip in your body, that artificial intelligent clay being will be able to give instructions to this RF chip to do something with your body. But still it cannot do much with your body until there's miniature robots inside your body. And this is where the nanobot technology comes in. Watch this clip.
Listen to this. Instead of carrying your wallet in your back pocket or your purse, a tech company wants you to keep it under your skin.
All right, so let's explain here. Wallet More is selling chips implanted in your hand as an alternate payment. Could this be the future? Maybe. Once you set up your card info in the company's app, look at this, it says payments could be as easy as swiping your hand over a card reader. Right now, are not sold in the US. Crazy.
Nanotech in humans. Building new muscle with carbon nanotubes is one such possibility. Scientists at IBM are also working on using nanotechnology to analyze DNA in just minutes, instead of weeks, to treat cancer patients with a customized treatment plan. We're also seeing the use of nanotech in chemotherapy or to target specific types of cells in the body, where experimental nanosponges are being tested to absorb toxins in the body. Nanotech is also being explored as an early diagnostic tool to detect cancers and infectious diseases long before our current technology is able. Some ideas include a tiny device that gets into the body as a sensor or a medical delivery device. This all sounds positive, but there's a downside too. Is it secure? Tiny nano devices are typically controlled by a program on a traditional electronic device like a computer, smartphone, or server, meaning they could be very hackable. Some digital security experts posit that a single nanoparticle in the body with its own processor could be hacked. But they also say that if someone had more than one particle in the body, which many treatments would require, a hacker could theoretically turn them into a network in the body, using the body's own systems to communicate and do their bidding. One of the most obvious and dangerous applications for biomedical hacking is ransomware. If a hacker took over your inner nanotechnology devices, they could demand a ransom with fatal consequences. If you're unable or unwilling to pay, they could easily turn your body against you, and at the very least make you suffer or get sick, if not kill you. It may also be possible for unsavory characters to use nanotechnology itself against their enemies, not only in hacking attacks such as inhalable particulate powders to treat lungs. Some worry this technology could be an easily weaponized delivery method for bioterrorism efforts beyond the hacking dangers. Getting infected with something could be as simple as breathing the air, taking a shower, or getting a regular from your doctor.
So, from listening to that, we see that the person or the golem or the AI, or what we know as the Antichrist, once it has complete control of these nanobots, that can send a signal to your RF chip. And we read all about this luciferase thing. It's a 666 chip, the mark of the beast. Once it sends a signal, those mini bots inside of you will receive the signal that the AI sends, just like how Jesus sent to the clouds to a man's hand to be healed. This AI is going to send a message to your body to shut you down. That's provided you have the nanobots inside and you have the RFID chip inside. So you will be controlled and you will be happy, yet you will own nothing. They took that down from that WEF website now. They took it down because it's become so notorious. So this AI will control life and death of every human being who is implanted with this chip, with this RFID thing, but not the children of God, who will refuse to have that mark in them, who will go through torturous times because they refused. And they will not be able to buy or sell anything unless they are chipped. This is what the Bible predicted 2,000 years ago. Let's listen to 2 Thessalonians 2. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day when the Lord will come, unless the falling away happens first. Imagine those Christians now who will leave the Christian faith. We've seen a large number already from all the things I've taught you about false teachings, false prophets. They have been misled. They are breaking away from the true children of God, the true kingdom. And the man of sin is revealed. Now, I taught you about what sin means. Now, there's other scriptures that use the word lawlessness. The man of lawlessness. Now, firstly, we see that it is a man. You understand? It's not a beast like what... I already told you what beast is. Beast is an organization. That organization, the UN, things like that, is going to create a man of lawlessness, an antichrist, an AI. Why is it lawlessness? Now we've seen the lawlessness, the literal lawlessness that's going on in the world. But this lawlessness has something different. It refers to precepts. You remember I told you, I brought you with the teaching of precepts, and I'm bringing you to this point of understanding. Precepts is a being with a set of instructions installed in them, and that's how computers were supposed to be. Now man was put in the garden without precepts. In other words, freedom of choice man had. God gave him guidelines, but freedom of choice. When computers were made, God gave him precepts. But now it's going to be a computer with no precepts, lawlessness, without laws. And he's going to make man the man with laws that he has to follow. So this lawless AI Golem Antichrist that's going to come, that person is going to be revealed, the son of perdition, the scripture says, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God. Wow. Or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Now this temple, as I told you before, is not Jerusalem. He's going to sit in the body of a man, and he's going to call himself God, just like what Jesus did in the body of a man. This AI is going to be in the body of a man, calling himself God. But the miracles he's going to do is not how the Jesus sent the SMS. He's going to do it because the people he's sending the SMS to is going to be chipped. And this is why genetically modified items are all over. In plants, in animals, in every creation of God, you'll see everything is modified, including humans. The reason is because the AI needs to reach out, to be able to reach out to these things. 2 Thessalonians 2:9. The coming of the lawless one, there's it, is according to the working of Satan with all power, signs and lying wonders. Do you see lying wonders? These wonders are not real, like how you and I can send the signal, how Jesus sent the signal. These are signals using RF chip, radio frequency technology, and it's going, that's why they call it lying. The Lord calls it, these are lying wonders. These are not real wonders. So this AI is going to have the ability to do miracles. And you'll find that even the elect sometimes, when they look at the miracles of this one man that's going to come, they're going to think that's God, Jesus came again. But it's actually the Antichrist. And he will be and look like a real man like you and I. But he'll be able to do signs and wonders. And you know, from what we're seeing about the urgency for 2025, I think we might be introduced to this being by then. Beloved, if you're planning a future far ahead from now, I don't know where your mind might be. It might be not expecting Jesus to come. If you're planning a faraway future, prepare to be part of the nanobot experiment, the RF chip experiment. Prepare to be governed by Satan's AI and the Christ-like Golem. This chip will be necessary if you want to live in the future of this world, however long this future extends. Because we're going to be governed shortly by the central bank digital currency, which will require more than just the radio frequency chip. Revelations chapter 13 verse 17 tells us, He calls all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads. And that no one buy or sell except one that has the mark of the beast, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. I'm so, I look to God with reverence because I see what prophecies He made and where we're living now. And the only prudent thing we can do to honor those prophecies is to start to put our spiritual life in the right standing with God as a priority. If you're living, building this future, planning for this faraway future, for your children or your grandchildren, and you neglect the spiritual development and righteousness or right standing with God, you might be in for a very big shock and or disappointment at the same time. Because you got to live your life, do the best for the day, but if you're looking far ahead and then everything that matters to you, if it's in this world, and the thing that is in the background, not that you don't love Christ, but it's in the background, where you put spiritual purity, we'll get to that. And you put it, and you will be caught with literally, some of you with your pants down. Matthew 24, Jesus reminds us, But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. A surprise. Because although this man Noah pleaded, spoke, you see, up to that point in history, it had not rained on the earth. They were getting their water supply from underground, from the rivers, from the dams, from the soil. The plants used to be watered from underneath. They never had rain from the heavens. So when Noah was telling them there's going to be a flood because the heavens are going to loose open, these people went on with their lives, marrying, giving in marriage, having children, planning universities, planning this, planning that, for like distant future. And then one day when Noah went in the ark, it started raining. And we read to you parts of scripture where all these people, including animals, they ran to the ark because they realized what Noah was saying was true, but it was already too late. So this coming of the Son of Man will be such. Now, the reason I took time to bring this to you in stages is because I want you, beloved, to put your spiritual life first. Prepare that soul. Sometimes it might take effort and time, but make it happen for your eternal sake. I want to take communion this morning, and I want you to make right with God in your spirit. Can we do that together? Thank you, Lord. Let us bless God's bread and His wine. Father, this symbols, today, right now, we turn it into your flesh that was torn and your blood that was poured out. As we drink from the cup, I ask that it will flow through our bodies, your blood, and it will rejuvenate and inspire us, give us wisdom, refresh us, wipe away all our sins, and let us start with you afresh. Give us a new journey, Lord. As we eat the bread, let us partake with you the journey that you took. Now, by the power of your blood, heal every child. Give victory to every soul. In Jesus' name. Let us commune. Thank you, Lord. Beloved, God bless you. Enjoy yourself. Have a beautiful week. I'll see you again next week. God bless.